Every day at exactly 6:30 in the morning, folks in our rough industrial neighborhood saw something that just didn't make sense. I remember it clear as day. A tiny 7-year-old girl marching straight toward the Iron Wolves clubhouse like she ran the whole damn street. People reacted in all kinds of ways. Some shook their heads. Others pulled out their phones and filmed her from their car windows. But the truth was, nobody had a clue who she actually was. Pretty soon, the whole block was buzzing with gossip. Who is that kid? Where are her parents? And why in the world would a little girl walk up to a biker clubhouse every single morning? But the thing was, she never explained a damn thing to anyone. She just kept doing it, day after day, same time, same route, same steady determination in her step. Eventually, one worried neighbor finally decided enough was enough and followed her. And what that person found, well, it shocked the entire neighborhood. What could a little girl like that possibly be, hiding behind such an innocent face? Stick around, because the truth will hit harder than you think. And before we dive in, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, I'm genuinely curious. Where are you watching from? Drop your country down in the comments. It always blows my mind seeing how far our stories travel. Anyway, back to that morning. The city was barely awake when the soft tapping of small sneakers echoed down Industrial Avenue. Fog hung low over the street, turning the rising sun into a pale reddish smear in the sky. And through that thick haze came the one sight everyone in the area had gotten used to. Even if no one could explain it, a tiny girl, couldn't have been older than 7, walked with purpose down a cracked sidewalk, wearing this oversized denim jacket that looked like it belonged to somebody 3 times her size. Her backpack bounced with every step, covered in bright pins and patches. But what really grabbed everyone's attention wasn't the jacket or the backpack. It was where she was headed. The Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club sat at the end of the block, a weather-beaten brick building with a line of bikes parked out front, like metal guards on duty. It was the kind of place most people crossed the street to avoid. Yet this kid walked right up to it every single morning like she had business there. No adult ever walked with her. Nobody knew where she came from, and honestly, no one could imagine what a child her age might want inside a biker clubhouse. But every day at 6:30 sharp, there she was, crossing the same streets, following the same path, disappearing behind the club's heavy steel door. Then hours later, she'd come strolling back out and head home, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Of course, people started making up stories. Some whispered she was the daughter of a biker who'd landed in prison. Others said she was running errands for the club, maybe even delivering something illegal. But none of those rumors explained why the Iron Wolves allowed her inside every single day. And honestly, what confused people even more was how protective the bikers seemed of her. I remember one morning when old Mr. Chen, who owned the corner store, tried to stop her. "Little miss," he called out softly, "does your mama know you're walking here alone?" Before the girl could even open her mouth, 2 big leather-clad wolves stepped out of the clubhouse. They didn't threaten anyone, didn't say a word, just stood there with their arms crossed, making it crystal clear the conversation was over. The girl didn't argue. She just adjusted her backpack straps, flashed Mr. Chen a small, polite smile, and kept walking. The old man stood there afterward, worried and confused, not knowing what to do next. Before long, people were filming her daily walk from their windows. Videos of the little girl heading toward the biker clubhouse started popping up all over social media. Some folks online jokingly called her the biker princess. Others laughed and said she was training to be the future president of the club. But underneath all those jokes was a rising unease. Because no matter how dangerous it looked, that little girl never seemed scared. Not once. And she never hesitated. The strangest part of all this wasn't just the girl. It was the way the bikers acted around her. These were men who could make a whole sidewalk clear just by stepping onto it. Guys who usually scared the life out of anyone who didn't know them. Yet with her, they were gentle, careful, almost tender in a way that didn't match their rough edges at all. Every few steps, she'd slip a small photograph out of her jacket pocket and glance at it. Her face would soften for a moment, then tighten with this fierce little determination that didn't belong on a kid her age. And whenever the bikers spotted her coming down the block, they'd stop whatever they were doing and make a clear path for her. Like she was some kind of tiny queen they were sworn to protect. One morning, a woman named Sarah Martinez happened to catch the whole scene from her apartment window. She'd only just moved into the neighborhood, so to her, nothing about what she saw made any sense at all. A child walking alone into a biker clubhouse every morning. Yeah, that raised alarms. Her gut twisted immediately. Something felt very, very wrong. She pulled out her phone, filmed the walk, and posted the clip online, having no idea she'd just lit the fuse on a mystery the whole neighborhood had been blind to for months. Her video went viral overnight. Millions of people watched this tiny kid stroll past rows of Harley-Davidsons and disappear into a clubhouse known for its rough reputation. Comment sections blew up instantly. Maybe she works for them? No way. That kid's in trouble. Those guys are using her. Look closer. They're protecting her. Within days, news vans were parked up and down Industrial Avenue. Reporters gathered on the sidewalk every morning, cameras aimed and ready. But the little girl seemed completely unaffected. She never acknowledged anyone, just marched straight toward the clubhouse with her head held high. Then someone online noticed something new. She always carried the same old, creased photograph. In one zoomed-in clip, a sharp-eyed viewer pointed out something everyone else had missed. Inside her jacket was a pinned military medal, and on her backpack, a tiny embroidered patch that read, "Fi," before the image blurred. The comments took a darker turn. Where are her parents? This is starting to look really bad. But no matter how worried people were, they couldn't stop watching. And every morning she followed the same route, the bikers forming a protective wall around her, like they were shielding something precious. From her window, Sarah whispered to herself, "What are you doing there, little girl?" She didn't know it yet, but she was closer to the answer than she realized. Now Sarah had been a social worker for years. She'd seen things most people never want to even think about. Neglect, abuse, broken families, you name it. But something about this quiet little girl walking into a biker clubhouse stirred a deep, familiar concern in her chest. So she started documenting everything. The girl arrived every day at exactly 6:30 a.m. She would stop at the door, touch whatever she kept hidden in her pocket, take one long breath, and knock 3 times, always 3. And always the same gray-bearded biker, everyone called him Bear, opened the door for her. 2 hours later, she'd come out and walk home. Then one freezing morning, Sarah finally decided she couldn't stand just watching anymore. She waited for the girl to head down the street, and then followed quietly from half a block behind. What surprised her most was how confidently the kid moved. She stepped around potholes without looking down, skirted broken sidewalks like she'd memorized every crack. When a delivery truck backed up dangerously close, she didn't panic. She just stepped into a doorway and waited like she'd done it 100 times. But as they approached the clubhouse, Sarah heard something she didn't expect. Not loud music or laughter, no. It was the steady beep of medical machines, low voices speaking carefully, the unmistakable groans of men in pain. The girl knocked 3 times, and when Bear opened the door, Sarah got a brief look inside. Hospital beds, IV stands, medical gear everywhere, and in those beds were a group of rough, battered men hooked up to machines, men who didn't look like the fearsome bikers the world believed they were. And every single one of them watched the girl walk in with this look of pure gratitude. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't what anyone thought. Before she could gather her thoughts, Bear glanced across the street and saw her. He didn't look angry, just worn out. Sad, even. Then he closed the door softly. Sarah stood frozen on the sidewalk, heart pounding. "Oh my God," she whispered. "She's not in danger. She's helping them." The next morning, Sarah got even closer, pretending to wait for a bus. When the little girl arrived, Sarah noticed the details she'd missed before. The backpack wasn't full of school stuff. It held medical supplies, neatly packed bandages, ointments, bottles of medicine. The girl sat on the clubhouse step and opened a small notebook, mouthing words to herself like she was rehearsing instructions. Then she stood, straightened her shoulders, and knocked 3 times. Bear opened the door. "Morning, sweetheart." "Morning, Bear," she answered quietly. "How was the night?" "Rough for a couple of them," he said, "but you being here helps more than you know." The warmth in his voice hit Sarah straight in the chest. As the door shut behind them, Sarah made up her mind. She marched across the street and knocked, firm and steady. Bear opened it, guarded and wary. "Can I help you?" "My name is Sarah Martinez," she said, showing her badge. "I'm a social worker. I need to know that child is safe." Bear studied her for a long moment. Then he sighed and opened the door wider. "You'd better come in," he said. "But before you step through this door, understand something. That little girl is safer here than anywhere else in this city." I remember the way Sarah paused, then stepped inside and froze. When I stepped inside that clubhouse, I realized it wasn't a clubhouse anymore. The place had been completely transformed into a makeshift hospice. 6 hospital beds lined the walls, each one occupied by a man in a different stage of sickness. Most of them were veterans. You can see the tattoos, the dog tags, the military markings on their arms and chests. Machines beeped steadily, the soft hum of oxygen tanks filling the room. But what froze me in place wasn't the equipment. It was the girl. She was standing beside one of the beds, reading from a children's book, to a man whose face was thin and hollow, but whose eyes lit up the second he saw her. He watched her like she was the only source of sunshine left in his world. "She comes every morning," Bear said quietly behind me. "Reads to them, talks with them, helps with their meds. She spends 2 hours here before she even goes to school." Why? I whispered. I needed to understand. Bear pointed to a framed photo on the wall, an old snapshot of a Marine in dress blues, standing next to a smiling woman holding a baby. "That's Sergeant Mike Chen," Bear said. 3 tours, PTSD, cancer. He died 8 months ago. Bear paused, taking a steadying breath. "And that little girl over there, that's his daughter, Emma," he went on. "Before Mike passed, he made her promise something. These men, they're just like him. Veterans who slipped through the cracks. No family left, no insurance, nowhere to go. Mike spent his last year helping them survive. And when he died, Emma asked if she could finish what her daddy started." I watched Emma adjust an IV line with small, careful hands. "You let a 7-year-old handle medical care?" I asked. Bear shook his head immediately. "No, we've got a retired nurse who comes in for all the medical stuff. Emma does something even more important. She gives them a reason not to give up. She reads to them, laughs with them, reminds them somebody still cares. Some of these guys haven't had a visitor in years. Then she walks in here every morning, and suddenly they've got something to look forward to." One of the men lifted a trembling hand. Emma rushed to him right away. "Hi, Mr. Jackson," she said softly. "Did you sleep okay?" "Better now that you're here, Angel," he wheezed. "Are you going to finish that story about the dragon?" Emma grinned and started reading again, her tiny voice filling the room with the kind of warmth no machine could ever provide. The men around her softened. One relaxed his shoulders, another closed his eyes for the first time all morning, smiling faintly. Tears stung my eyes. That was what the whole world had been so worried about. And it was nothing like the videos made it seem. Bear nodded toward the scene. People see bikers and a kid, and they jump straight to the worst conclusion. They don't see the truth. Mike Chen was our brother. These men are our brothers. And Emma, she's keeping her daddy's promise. We're just making sure she can do it safe. I watched as she moved from bed to bed, greeting each man by name, checking on their pain levels, offering water. The bikers hovered nearby, always ready to help, always making sure she never had to lift or strain for anything. "The neighborhood thinks you're using her," I said quietly. Bear's jaw tightened. "They can believe whatever helps them sleep. We know the truth. And these men, they know an angel when they see one." As I turned to go, Emma looked up at me with those bright, steady eyes and smiled. "Are you here to help too?" My throat tightened. I knelt down so I was eye level with her. "I'd like to," I said, "if you're willing to teach me." Her whole face lit up. "Really? Mr. Rodriguez loves when people read him the sports section." Emma handed me the newspaper with her little hands, and I walked toward Mr. Rodriguez's bed, completely undone by the simple, powerful love of a child keeping a promise to her father. Outside, the world was busy judging, but inside that room, something beautiful was happening. A daughter's love, a father's legacy, and a group of rough bikers doing everything they could to honor both. And then, one cold, clear morning, everything changed. Emma was halfway down Industrial Avenue when she heard it, the loud screech of tires slicing through the quiet. She spun around and saw a car blasting through a red light, racing straight toward an elderly woman with a walker crossing the street. Emma didn't hesitate. She dropped her backpack and sprinted. "Stop! Look out!" she shouted. The woman froze in confusion as the car barreled toward her, and then, out of nowhere, 3 motorcycles roared to life. Bear and two other wolves burst from the clubhouse, riding straight into the street. They positioned their bikes sideways, forming a steel barricade between the car and the old woman. The driver slammed the brakes, screeching to a stop only inches from Bear's motorcycle. Emma reached the elderly woman first and gently took her arm. "It's okay, ma'am," she said softly. "You're safe now." The driver jumped out of the car, yelling, furious. "Are you crazy?" Bear got off his bike slowly, towering over the man like a wall of muscle and leather. "You ran a red light," he said calmly. "You almost killed someone." More bikers emerged from the clubhouse, and the situation could have exploded into something ugly. But Emma's voice cut through everything. "Please don't fight," she said. "The lady needs help." And just like that, every single biker shifted focus. They guided the woman to the sidewalk while one of them called 911. Emma stayed right beside her, holding her hand the whole time. "You're very brave," the woman whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You saved my life." Emma shook her head quietly. "Bear and his friends saved you." The woman looked from Emma to the bikers, then back to Emma. "You're the girl everyone's been talking about," the elderly woman whispered, still shaken. "Yes, ma'am," Emma said softly. "I come every morning to help the veterans inside. My daddy was a Marine." The woman's chin trembled. "He'd be so proud of you." By the time the paramedics arrived, a whole crowd had gathered. Someone had captured the entire event. The speeding car, the sudden roar of motorcycles, Bear stepping in like a human shield, and little Emma racing to help. The video blew up online even faster than the earlier ones, but this time, the tone changed. Comments poured in by the thousands. "Those bikers are heroes. That little girl's braver than half the adults I know. Wow. I misjudged them completely." I stood on the sidewalk watching all of it unfold, and finally pulled out my phone. I knew the world needed to hear the truth. "My name is Sarah Martinez," I said into the camera. "I'm a social worker, and I've been watching Emma Chen walk to the Iron Wolves clubhouse every morning. I was worried. Honestly, I thought something was wrong. But I was wrong about everything." I turned the camera toward the building. Inside that clubhouse, 7 terminally ill veterans are receiving end-of-life care, men our system forgot. And every morning a 7-year-old girl keeps a promise she made to her dying father. She reads to them, talks to them, makes them feel human again. Then the camera shifted to Bear and the other bikers. These men transformed their clubhouse into a hospice. They pay for supplies themselves. They protect a little girl's right to honor her father's legacy. My voice cracked as I continued. "We've been quick to judge them. But this right here. This is what real love looks like. This child is teaching all of us what it means to keep a promise." Within hours, the video had millions of views. Donations surged in. Medical companies offered free equipment. Nurses volunteered. Supply trucks rolled in. And suddenly people finally understood what had been happening behind that steel door. That evening, as Emma got ready to go home, she stepped outside and froze. The entire neighborhood was waiting for her. Mr. Chen from the corner store, Mrs. Rodriguez from the laundromat, families Emma had never even spoken to. Mr. Chen stepped forward, tears clinging to his lashes. "We're sorry," he said. "We didn't understand before, but we do now, and we want to help." Emma looked up at Bear. unsure what to do. He nodded gently. "Tell them what you need, sweetheart." Her voice was small but steady. "Well, the men get lonely in the afternoons, and Mr. Jackson, he really wants to see the ocean before he dies." Mrs. Rodriguez wiped her eyes. "We'll make sure they get visitors every day," she promised. A man stepped forward next. "I've got a van with a wheelchair lift," he said. "Jackson's going to see the ocean, I swear it." And just like that, one neighbor after another offered help. The little girl who had walked alone for so long suddenly had an entire community walking beside her. 3 months later, Industrial Avenue didn't look anything like it used to. The old clubhouse now had a new sign: the Sergeant Mike Chen Veterans Hospice. Emma still showed up every morning at 6:30 sharp, but she never walked alone anymore. Volunteers joined her, carrying medical supplies, meals, blankets, books, hope. Mr. Jackson made it to the ocean. The bikers loaded him into a custom sidecar, rode him all the way to the beach, and Emma sat beside him in the sand while he watched the waves roll in. 2 weeks later, he passed away peacefully, his hand held by Emma and bare. His last words were, "Thank you for reminding me what I was fighting for." Emma placed his picture beside her father's on the memorial wall. "Rest easy, hero," she whispered. "I'll take care of the others." The hospice now cared for 15 veterans. What started as one little girl's promise had turned into a national movement. Biker clubs across the country were opening their doors to veterans who had nowhere else to go. Emma was invited to speak at events and interviews, but she always said the same thing. "My daddy taught me that love is action. Promises matter. Family isn't just blood, it's the people who show up, and everyone deserves care, especially at the end." News stations started calling her the Angel of Industrial Avenue, but Emma didn't care about the name. She stayed focused, walking into that hospice every morning with the same determined stride she'd had since day one. One morning, as she was heading inside, a reporter stopped her. "What do you want people to know?" she asked. Emma looked at her father's photograph on the wall. "I want people to know that when we make a promise, we keep it, and that everybody deserves to be cared for, especially the ones who took care of us." "And what's next for you?" the reporter asked. Emma peered through the window at the veterans. "I'm going to keep coming every morning. When these heroes go home, I'll help the next ones. That's what my daddy would do." That evening she walked home, surrounded by neighbors greeting her by name. Industrial Avenue, once rough and unforgiving, felt like home now. Bear walked her to her apartment. Emma's grandmother opened the door, pride filling her eyes. "Your father would be so proud," she whispered, pulling Emma close. "I'm keeping my promise, Grandma," Emma said softly, "and I'll keep it until all his brothers are home." Inside the hospice, veterans slept peacefully, finally knowing they weren't forgotten or alone. And in the morning, a little girl in an oversized denim jacket, carrying a backpack full of hope, would walk through the door again. The whole story had begun in suspicion, grew into concern, and ended with something far more powerful: understanding, community, and love. A daughter honoring her father's legacy, a group of bikers guarding a sacred promise, and a neighborhood learning that heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear leather, and sometimes they're raised by angels in denim jackets.